Geico. Great savings and a whole lot more.
Good morning, America. The aftermath of Hurricane Irma. New images of the devastation. The Florida Keys pummeled. A majority of homes damaged or destroyed. Now families return to the destruction and the despair in the Caribbean. The U.S. military scrambling to help stranded Americans.
President Trump preparing to tour ravaged Florida and reaching across the aisle what we're now learning about his private dinner, inviting both Republicans and Democrats to the White House, trying to strike a tax reform deal. An ABC News exclusive. NFL star Michael Bennett telling his story about what happened in Las Vegas. Seen in this TMZ footage.
And all of a sudden I hear like somebody say, "Get on the ground."
Held at gunpoint by police, claiming he was a victim of racial profiling.
I was just terrified.
What was going through his mind and what he now tells his children only on GMA this morning.
And hand in hand, the massive turnout across the country starts from Los Angeles to Nashville to New York.
When tough times hit, this is who we are.
Thousands of you jumping in, donating more than $40 million and counting in less than 24 hours.
Do not give up hope.
The incredible effort and how you can still help this morning.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
I love that. We do say good morning, America. What an incredible night. So many people joining together to support those that were affected by Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. They were right here in our little old studio and all across the country.
It was amazing, amazing to see thousands of you at home, though, opening up your hearts and your wallets to help those in need. And guess what? The Hand in Hand Telethon has raised more than $44 million so far.
And the money is still coming in, and the need is still so great. We're reminded of that this morning as storm victims across Florida and the Southeast starting that long road to recovery. You know, gas is still in short supply across the state. Traffic backed up. You see it right there as residents try to get home, and many are finding scenes of devastation like these from the Florida Keys.
Well, the destruction is so widespread, officials haven't been able to assess the total damage yet. ABC's Victor Oquendo is in Isla Mirada, Florida, with more. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, Robin. I'm standing right in front of what's left of a 3-story apartment complex leveled by Hurricane Irma. You can look right inside these units. Once you get past the water here, you can see a bedroom on one side. There are the mattresses, a living room on the other. There's a couch. It's for this reason residents were told to evacuate. This morning, devastation across the Florida Keys.
I can't even believe it.
As residents are allowed to stream back into the ruins for the first time, they're just beginning to assess all the damage.
I didn't expect it to be this bad, honestly.
Homes completely flattened, while others ripped right off their foundation.
It was hell. You didn't know if you were going to make it or not.
According to FEMA, Irma damaged or destroyed 90% of all the homes in the Keys. From above, islands once lined with beachside villas and luxury condos, now scarred with shredded rooftops, buildings reduced to rubble, and mountains of debris where homes once stood.
We'd spend time with my grandparents in this house.
The Air National Guard surveying all the damage from the air. You can see neighborhoods completely shredded. David Muir on the ground as they went home to home, assessing the damage, searching for casualties and survivors.
People were trying to shelter in place in their homes. It just was not substantial for the type of weather that occurred here.
The Florida Keys just 112 miles long. This morning, officials only allowing people who evacuated into the first 33 miles. Residents growing frustrated.
I have water, I have food, I have dogs, and I can't get to my house.
It wasn't just the building that was destroyed. Take a look at the driveway. It completely collapsed. Very long few days here for everybody in the Keys, but we'd like to share this image with you. This rainbow that went above the Florida Keys on Tuesday. George, it was a very welcome sight.
Yeah, nice little sign of hope right there. Okay, Victor, thanks very much. There is a race to restore power now across Florida. More than 2 million customers back on the grid, but millions still in the dark. Some could stay there for weeks. Our chief national correspondent, Tom Yamas, is in Miami with a closer look at the massive effort to get power back. Good morning, Tom.
George, good morning to you. You know, many people have described the effort to get the power back on as a military-like operation. Well, that's what it looks like here. We're at the largest staging area in South Florida for FP&L. Hundreds of trucks behind me, even more workers, all tackling one of the toughest jobs in American history when it comes to power.
As utility crews in the south work feverishly to restore power this morning, nearly 4.9 million Americans across 5 southern states are still in the dark, with more than 4.3 million in Florida alone.
Our Army of Restoration Workers, which now numbers 20,000, is hard at work.
And as temperatures rise with no air conditioning for some, one Hollywood hospital has seen a staggering number suffering from heat exhaustion.
We've seen patients with temperatures up to 105, 106 degrees from nursing homes come in.
No power, no nothing, no internet, no TV, no baths. We just all stuck it out and ate some cold raviolis.
Kathleen Thompson, now one of the lucky ones. She got her power back on 2 hours before the sun went down on Tuesday. But so many in her family don't have power. Now, they're all staying with her.
16, 3 aren't here right now.
16 people in a 3-bedroom house?
Yes.
How many bathrooms?
2.
And some serious danger for residents who are relying on generators. In Bonita Springs, 20 people, including 13 children, were taken to hospitals for possible carbon monoxide poisoning.
There was a generator running at that residence when they did call. They were instructed to turn it off.
And in Orlando, a generator inside this home's garage poisoned and killed 3 members of a family. 4 others are still in the hospital in serious condition.
The SAD meter is 1 to 10. This is an 11.
And utility companies in those states affected by the power outages want to remind everyone to keep those generators 20 feet from the home or the garage because that carbon monoxide can easily seep into windows and open doors, Robin.
Must remember that. Okay, Tom, thank you very much. And we cannot forget that Hurricane Irma also left so much devastation in the Caribbean. Residents there are desperate for food, water, and shelter this morning. Many tourists have been evacuated. However, some say they thought they'd be able to leave on a cruise ship, but then they were left stranded. ABC's David Wright has that side of the story. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Robin. This is the flight line for U.S. military planes headed out to help some of the hardest hit islands. They've been doing a lot of evacuations. But the military aren't the only ones that are evacuating people. Private companies are getting involved too. And one effort coordinated by the Marriott hotel chain is facing some criticism. This is what Hurricane Irma left behind in much of the Caribbean. The streets increasingly chaotic and dangerous. Food and water supplies becoming scarce. And American tourists stranded in a tropical paradise lost.
We don't have food or water or places to go. We are stranded.
This video shows dozens of U.S. tourists marooned in the dark in St. Thomas with all of their luggage after being turned away from the ship they hoped would take them to San Juan to safety.
We have nowhere to go, no resources.
Was there room on the boat?
Absolutely. We had a group, probably 35 people, that there was plenty of room for, but were not allowed access to the boat.
The tourists were told the boat would take the first 600 people, first come, first serve. But after lugging their bags for miles from their hotels, they found out the 30,000-ton ferry was actually chartered by Marriott.
So possibly we have Marriott not letting us onto this boat.
Anyone not a Marriott guest? Out of luck.
So they shut the lights off here in order to get us to go.
Marriott blames local officials, insisting the Marriott team on the ground was told they had no authorization to board additional passengers who were not on the manifest, even though the company says we very much wanted to assist these other travelers to Puerto Rico. Now, thankfully, the people that were stranded in St. Thomas are now back safe and sound here in Puerto Rico, or even headed back to the U.S., rescued in some cases by the Coast Guard, if not by Marriott. Meanwhile, the U.S. military continues to head out every day searching for stranded Americans on some of those hardest hit islands, guys.
Thank goodness for the military. A lot of chaos there. Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Absolutely. And hurricane season has already been so active this year with Harvey, Irma, and now Jose in the Atlantic. We're going to go to Ginger Z, who has more on what we can expect. Good morning, Ginger.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Come with me and look at this. It's kind of impressive. Even though there's not much left of Irma, cloud cover and even some rain from Texas up to New York. But all eyes now to Jose out there just east of Bermuda. Looking a little unhealthy, as we call it. It ran into a lot of dry air, a lot of wind shear. Things in the environment around it will improve slightly for a couple of days, but this is it still stays out in the Atlantic. The big impact, even closer it gets westward would be high surf and rip currents, anywhere with winds up to 7 feet. That's along the Jersey coast, right there through the mid-Atlantic, certainly North Carolina, down to South Carolina. So we're going to have much more on this and the wildfires burning in the west now with 8 million acres. Michael.
All right, thank you, Jen. You said unhealthy. We hope it stays healthy. And Irma led to thousands of flight cancellations over the past week and a half. And Florida commercial airports are now open again, but flights around the storm zone are just starting to get back on track. And David Curley has that first.
Yeah, we just lost David Curley. We'll try that later, but President Trump is planning to go down to Florida tomorrow to survey the damage caused by Hurricane Irma. He's also making a big push on tax reform, holding a dinner at the White House last night with both senators. And Congress has sent a bill to President Trump calling the violence last month a domestic terror attack and condemning the KKK, neo-Nazis, and other hate groups. Let's get the latest on all that from our senior correspondent Cecilia Vega. Good morning, Cecilia.
So far, not a lot of details from the White House about what this trip tomorrow to Florida will look like, but there is one difference in one respect that we do know about. The president went to Texas that first time. He went to that firehouse. He waved that flag. For not seeing the damage firsthand with his own eyes, for not talking directly to victims. It looks like this trip, George, will be a little bit different. He are expected to survey directly the damage to Irma themselves.
And there is so much damage. Meantime, the president on tax reform, Cecilia, he did have that meeting last night, that dinner with senators. But so far, the president and leaders in the Congress, Republicans in Congress, haven't come to an agreement on what they want to present.
Yeah, and what we're both sides, in fact, who were at this dinner here at the White House last night, George, is that the complaint is that the White House so far has been really short on details about this tax reform. There were 3 Senate Democrats here at this dinner last night. I'm told by sources for this dinner, for this bipartisan dinner, was not to have everybody come to an agreement. It was really to get both sides in the room and just to start this conversation. It sounds like the president really tried to put the charm on. He took 2 senators on a tour of the residence. They got to see the Lincoln bedroom. And George, there will be another bipartisan meeting at the White House today. So the president really trying to push this one.
And a lot of trouble for the president as well. Meantime, the Congress putting the president on the spot. That resolution they passed condemning the violence to the president's rhetoric last month, where he talked about violence on both sides. The congressional resolution really does single out white supremacist groups. Any reaction from the White House?
Well, so far, no. I've talked to here say they're not sure exactly what the president will do. You know, he'll have 10 days to either veto or sign this. Otherwise, it is law. The president today will be meeting with Senator Tim Scott. He's the only African-American senator on the Hill. And today, among talking about will be the president's response to Charlottesville and race. So it's bound to
yeah, no reaction from the White House. Pretty hard to imagine he'd veto that.
I can't imagine, George, but we don't know yet.
Okay, Cecilia Vega, thanks very much.
Now to the Russia investigation, President Trump's former national security advisor Michael Flynn is refusing to cooperate with congressional subpoenas to testify. Our congressional committee is turning over new information to special counsel Robert Mueller about 4 did not disclose. And our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, is here with the story. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Robin. The new allegations today against General Flynn involve what are being called more than a dozen contacts overseas for a private business venture that WABC News Flynn concealed from authorities. Information that Congressman says has now been turned over to special counsel Robert Mueller.
General Flynn spent the summer in Newport, Rhode Island. Seen in this photo, proudly posted by his side. The general tried to stay out of the headlines.
General Flynn, Brian Ross, WABC News. How are you? Just wanted to ask you if you had anything you want to say. Everyone's asking what's going on in your case.
I really
you know,
having a great time with my family.
Summer gathering new information that Democrats say reveals Flynn committed criminal acts by omitting and concealing contacts and travel overseas, which they say should have been disclosed for his security clearance. Flynn's own words against him, reviewing speeches and news interviews that he boasted of his overseas contacts.
I have spoken to friends in Saudi, friends in Egypt, friends in Kuwait, friends in Qatar, friends in the UAE.
But Flynn did not list in those countries as required on his disclosure form, according to congressional investigators.
Is subject to a 5-year jail sentence. I think that's pretty serious.
Flynn is also under scrutiny for his alleged role in a bizarre kidnap this exiled Turkish dissident, Fethullah Gulen, from rural Pennsylvania and then back to Turkey. Former CIA director James Woolsey told ABC News he was at a meeting in which Flynn raised the prospect.
They were considering a kidnapping operation for Gulen, and I told them then that it was a bad idea.
Lock her up. That's right.
All at the same time that General Flynn was serving as Trump's top national security advisor.
That would be outrageous to talk about a kidnapping on American soil.
When we tried to ask him about the allegations now coming out of Washington, his family stepped in to protect him.
The allegations about, are they bothering you from a distance, sir?
They bother me from a distance. Thank you.
Flynn's lawyer says his client was not part of any plot, any discussions involving a kidnapping. In the end, the importance of these allegations may be that them as a kind of hammer to cut a deal with Flynn to get him to tell whatever he knows about the president and Russia.
All right, we know he's in their crosshairs. Yes. Okay, Brian, thank you very much. We're going to move on now to a major development in the Freddie Gray case. He's the Baltimore man who suffered a broken neck in a police van in 2015. His death sparked violent protests and riots, but no officers were convicted in the case. And now the Justice Department has announced it will not bring federal charges against the 6 officers involved in the arrest, saying prosecutors did not produce enough evidence to prove he violated Gray's civil rights. 5 of the officers still face internal disciplinary hearings. The case is closing up right now. But, Mike, we got some good news from my hometown.
From your hometown, George, you're going to be happy because your Cleveland Indians, they are one step closer to making baseball history. They just won their 20th game in a row, tying held by the 2002 Oakland A's, who you might remember from the Brad Pitt movie, Baseball. Now, if the Indians win again today, they'll tie the record set by Cubs, but they still have a way to go before they catch the all-time record for consecutive wins that was set in 1916
by who?
By the New York baseball team, though. And that team went 27 games without losing. But interesting, Giants at 27, they won 12 games, had a tie, and then won 14. That's so with 26 consecutive games interrupted by a tie.
There was tie. Have that now, so there's a little, you know.
Now you just play until you fall out.
That's true. Let's get back to Ginger. Ginger, there are so many fires burning out west.
66 wildfires. One of them in Washington state is the North Peak fire. This is 52,000 acres burned already, only 12% contained. The images just keep coming in, but it helps to have and just how wide the expanse is. But look at this. Some good news with red flag warnings in Montana, a winter storm watch. That is for up to 6 inches of snow. That's going to help fires. The cooler weather certainly will as well as this trough moves in. Now brought to you by American Assassin Rated R.
Hey, look at this. American Assassin is a high-octane action thriller from start to finish.
That's very gratifying.
Dylan O'Brien up the screen, and Michael Keaton is fantastic. Buckle up.
I look forward to this.
You're in for a ride.
I don't think so.
A new action bro is born.
He's exactly what we've been looking for.
American Assassin, Rated R. Special screenings tomorrow.
Not a big chance of rain today. Our best chance, in fact, comes here during the morning rush about 1 o'clock, and then that chance diminishes. We can see some late-day sunshine with a high today finally closer to average, and we'll see this warmth stick around through the weekend and early part of next week. In fact, decreasing clouds after some rain tomorrow, maybe even a thunderstorm. 85 to 86 your Saturday, Sunday, and look at the first day of fall there on Friday, the high 78.
Kazi, one of our great props guys, just said, did you say snow? Yes, I want to clarify. It's that time of year. I definitely said snow.
Already?
In Montana, but it's happening.
It's a-coming. Thank you, Ginger. Coming up, that ABC News exclusive, NFL star Michael Bennett opening up for the first time about that incident with police seen in this TMZ footage. He says he was handcuffed at gunpoint and a victim of racial profiling. That interview is coming.
And have you seen the new iPhone yet? We're going to tell you all about it.
You've got to make better choices, Jane.
Farewell, cookie dough ice cream.
What's that you're drinking?
It's Trop 50. It's fine.
It tastes delicious.